I don't even know how to start this. I've spent the past 2 weeks trying to figure out if I should tell anyone, even anonymously. But I feel like if I don't get this off my chest, I'm going to go crazy. My name's not important. What's important is that I spent the last 9 years of my life married to a woman I thought I knew. We met in college. She was smart, funny, beautiful in that way that just felt real. Not fake, not polished, just human. I was hooked fast. She studied psychology. I was in finance. We moved in together after graduation and got married 2 years later. I thought we had a solid marriage. We didn't argue much, we had good communication, or so I thought, and we had our little routines that made life feel stable. Every Thursday was takeout and a movie night. Sundays were for brunch. We didn't have kids. She said she wanted to focus on her career first, maybe in a few years. I respected that. I trusted her completely. Maybe that's why I didn't see it sooner. Looking back, there were small signs, things that seemed off, but I dismissed them. She'd take trips for work conferences a little more often in the last year. She started guarding her phone, not overly suspiciously, just subtle. She had new passwords, started turning its screen down. I noticed, but didn't say anything, because I trusted her. I didn't want to be that guy. Then last month, she told me we'd be spending Christmas with her grandmother. This didn't seem weird at all. Her grandma lived out of state, somewhere in Oregon, and we'd never been able to make it work with our holiday schedules before. I was actually excited. I'd never met this grandma, but my wife always talked about how kind she was, how she raised her, how she lived in this cute little white house in a quiet town. So we planned a road trip. She insisted on driving instead of flying, saying her grandma hated airports and wanted to surprise her in person. Fine by me. I love long drives. The plan was simple. Drive up over 2 days, spend Christmas week there, and drive back before New Year's. We packed the car the night before. She seemed different. Not distant, exactly, but nervous. Kept checking her phone. I figured she was just anxious about the trip. She said her grandma had been sick recently and maybe wouldn't remember much. The first day of the drive was normal. We talked, listened to music, stopped for food, took silly pictures like always. But something changed the second day. She got quieter, less present. I caught her staring out the window a lot, not really responding when I talked. At one point, I asked if she was okay, and she just nodded, said she was tired. When we got close, she took over the GPS, said she wanted to navigate since she knew the area better. I thought that was strange. I mean, she hadn't visited this grandma in over a decade. How well could she know it? But I didn't argue. The GPS led us through small neighborhoods, then onto a cul-de-sac that didn't look like anything she'd described before. The houses were newer, suburban, not small-town white picket fence kind of place I expected. "Is this it?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. She just stared out the windshield, then said, "Yeah, that's her house." But her voice was thin, off. I pulled into the driveway. She sat frozen. I was about to ask what was wrong when the front door opened. A man came out, late 30s, holding a little girl, maybe 3 years old. The man looked straight at us and smiled, waving like he recognized the car. Then he said, "You made it." I turned to my wife. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight. That's when the little girl wriggled free from the man's arms and ran toward the car shouting, "Mommy!" My heart stopped. I looked at my wife. She didn't move, didn't speak, just started crying. I didn't get out of the car. I couldn't. I sat there staring at the man, the house, the child calling my wife Mommy. Everything inside me collapsed. And that was the moment I realized I had no idea who I'd married.
I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just sat there, in the car, my hands frozen on the steering wheel, watching this man approach us with a smile and a child who had just called my wife Mommy. I think I was waiting for some kind of punchline, for her to say it was a misunderstanding or a joke, or that the man was confused, but she just sat there beside me, trembling, not even trying to wipe the tears from her cheeks. The door opened. I didn't even notice her unbuckle her seatbelt. She stepped out of the car like a robot, barely lifting her feet. The little girl ran straight into her arms, hugging her around the waist, and I watched as my wife, hugged her back without hesitation, pressing her face into the child's hair and whispering something I couldn't hear. The man came closer. He looked confused, like he finally noticed something wasn't right. "Everything okay?" he asked, glancing at me, then back at her. I opened the door slowly. My legs didn't want to work. I stepped out and closed the door behind me as calmly as I could, trying to make sense of the hurricane inside my chest. "Who is this?" I asked, not even looking at her anymore. I was staring directly at the man. He blinked. I'm sorry. I'm Daniel," he said, like it was supposed to mean something to me. Then he extended a hand but dropped it when I didn't move. "And you are?" I didn't answer him. I turned to her. "You gonna say something?" Her eyes were full of panic now. She looked at me, then at Daniel, then at the child. "Can we please go inside?" she whispered. "No," I said, louder than I meant to. "We're not going anywhere until someone tells me what the hell is going on." Daniel's face changed. It clicked. "Wait, who are you to her?" he asked slowly. The silence that followed was unbearable. She didn't answer. She didn't look at either of us. She just stared at the ground. "I'm her husband," I said finally. "We've been married for 9 years." Daniel took a step back, like I'd hit him. "What?" he said. No, she's my wife. We've been together for 6 years. This is our daughter." My brain couldn't process the words. I turned to her again. "Tell me he's lying." She shook her head, still not looking at me, just barely moving. "I'm so sorry," she said. "That's all." I exploded. "Sorry? That's it? That's all you have to say?" My voice cracked. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I thought I might pass out. Daniel looked like he was going to throw up. He backed up toward the porch and sat down hard on the steps, pulling the little girl gently to him. She was staring at all of us, confused and scared, and that broke something else inside me. "You've been living a double life?" I asked her. "You have a whole family? In another state? And what, every time you went on a business trip, you came here?" She nodded slowly. "At first, it wasn't supposed to be anything. I met him at a conference. It happened. Then I found out I was pregnant and I didn't know how to tell you. I thought it would fall apart on its own. But it didn't. It kept going." "You kept it going," I corrected. "You made this choice, over and over, for 6 goddamn years." She wiped her face with the sleeve of her coat. "I didn't want to lose either of you." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was bitter and empty. "Well, congratulations. You lost both." I didn't know what else to do. I turned around, walked back to the car, and sat there for a long time, just staring at the dashboard while my whole life burned in the rearview mirror.
I sat in that car for what felt like hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, hands clenched, watching the windshield fog over from my breath. I could still see her in the mirror. She was sitting on the porch steps now, a few feet away from him and the child. They weren't speaking. just sitting in stunned silence, like everyone had stepped on a landmine and no one was sure if the next move would set off the explosion. Eventually, she walked back to the car, slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. She opened the door and sat beside me, not saying a word for at least a minute. Then she finally whispered, "Can we talk somewhere else?" I stared forward. "You had 6 years to talk to me," I said. "Why now?" She looked down at her hands. "Because now it's over." I turned to her. "What's over? Us? Them? Or your fantasy where you got to be 2 people in 2 lives and never deal with the consequences?" She winced. Good. She deserved to feel the sting of it. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice cracking. I laughed again, hollow, dry. "You never meant to? Do you have any idea what you've done to me? What you've done to our life? You've built a goddamn parallel universe and let me believe I was your only reality." She wiped at her face again, biting her lip like a scolded child. "It started out small, just a connection, something I didn't expect. I didn't think it would last, but it did. He loved me too. He still does, and the baby," her voice faded. "I didn't know how to leave either of you." That was when it really hit me. This wasn't just an affair. She wasn't just cheating. She was married. She was in love. She had a child. She'd built a second home. I turned to her, calmer now, but it was that dangerous kind of calm where you've already started mourning everything. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" She hesitated. "No." I just nodded. "Of course." I looked at her again, really looked, and she was a stranger. Not the woman I married, not the friend I'd spent years building a life with. She was someone else now. I started the car. She flinched. "Where are we going?" "Home," I said. "My home." "I think I should come with you. We need to talk." "No, we're past talking. You can stay here. You already have a family here, remember?" She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. She looked completely drained. "I didn't mean to lose you," she said quietly. I didn't respond. I put the car in gear and pulled away from the curb. She stood there as I drove off, watching me leave, and I didn't even look back in the mirror. The ride home was a blur. I remember the silence more than anything. I couldn't even put on music. Every lyric would have felt like a mockery. I just drove in this heavy, ringing silence, thinking about every dinner we shared, every vacation, every late-night conversation that now felt like a lie. When I got back to our house, I walked into our bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the photo of us on our wedding day. I couldn't even cry. I was too tired. I stayed up the entire night going through our emails, bank statements, calendar entries, everything. And sure enough, it was all there. The clues, the gaps, the trips. I'd been blind, or maybe just trusting, and she'd counted on that. The next morning, I called a lawyer. She didn't call me. She didn't come home. Not that week, not the next. She texted a few times, mostly weak attempts to apologize or explain. I didn't answer. What could she possibly say that would matter now? But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the realization that I'd been living in someone else's script, that my whole marriage had been just one half of her story, and I didn't even have a speaking role in the other half, and I was done being silent. A few weeks passed. People started asking questions. Our friends, her parents, even her coworkers. I didn't give details. I didn't need to. She must have told them something, because the messages from her side of the circle either stopped altogether or came in with that awful, hollow tone. "Thinking of you, let us know if you need anything. We're so sorry to hear what happened." No one asked me if I was okay. No one asked what really happened. I guess when it comes to betrayal, people like to stay in the safe zone. They don't want to pick sides. They don't want to know the ugly truth that someone they liked, someone they laughed with at dinner parties, could lie that well for that long. A month later, the divorce was in motion. She didn't fight it. In fact, she signed everything in the first round. No protest, no lawyers trying to wring out more, just silence.
I didn't know if that made things better or worse. Part of me wanted a fight. Part of me wanted her to at least pretend like she was sorry enough to resist letting go. But another part of me, the tired, hollowed-out part, was just relieved it would be over soon. I started therapy. First solo, then a couple sessions with a group. At first, I felt ridiculous, like some cliché in a breakup montage, but it helped. Saying it out loud helped. Hearing other people's stories helped. Knowing I wasn't the only one who got played, got used, got made into a footnote in someone else's life, it made the weight a little lighter. One night, I sat on my back porch with a beer in hand, listening to the wind rattle the trees. I looked up at the stars and realized something. I didn't want her back. Not even a little. That love I had, it wasn't alive anymore. It had been starved too long, lied to too much. I still remembered the good times, but they felt like someone else's memories. I had to let go of the version of her I thought was real, because she was never that person. And that's what hurt the most. Not the cheating, not even the second family, but the fact that I loved someone who never really existed. A few days after the divorce was finalized, she sent one last message. I hadn't heard from her in weeks. It just said, "I know I can't undo what I did. I don't expect you to ever forgive me, but I do hope you find someone who deserves the kind of love you gave me, because I didn't, and that's on me." I didn't respond. Not out of anger, not even out of pride. I just didn't need anything from her anymore. Fast forward to now, almost a year since that night. I moved cities, started fresh, smaller apartment, new job, new people. I don't talk about her much, and when I do, it's not with rage or bitterness. It's just a part of my story now, a chapter that ended. A scar I carry, sure, but not one I hide. And here's the thing. I'm okay. For a long time, I thought this story would break me, that I'd spend years trying to crawl out of the hole she left behind, but instead I learned more about myself in that pain than I ever did in comfort. I learned how deep I could hurt and still stand back up. I learned how to spot red flags in myself, not just others. I learned that love isn't always enough, and trust isn't something you give away for free. It has to be earned, daily. To anyone reading this who's been through something similar, whether you're still in it or on the other side, I just want you to know you're not weak. You're not stupid. You loved. And love, even when it's betrayed, is never something to be ashamed of. Thank you to everyone who listened. Thank you to those who commented with support, who shared your own stories, who reminded me I'm not alone. That meant more than you know.